Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to episode 4 of Surface Sessions. Today I am looking to do a little bit of testing with Pro Tools. Now if you've seen my mega test video, you'll know that Pro Tools gave me a lot of trouble. Lots of clicking and popping and other things that I couldn't seem to resolve in a relatively simple project. Well, I'm going to take that same project, or rather the content of that project, and record it back into Pro Tools. Add a few effects and a little bit of messing about just to see how it does. I mean, there's been a lot of change since I did the mega test. There's been the anniversary update, there's been lots of firmware updates to the Surface and such like, and I've changed bits and pieces of gear that I'm using. So I would like to do a really in-depth sort of repeat of the mega test, but it's just an enormous thing to try to do. So instead, this time around, I'm going to do it in little bits and pieces. So I'm just going to have a look into Pro Tools, do something with it, see what happens so that you can get the impression of whether it works for you or not. And I'll just keep filming, and if there's problems, I'll show those problems. If there isn't, I'll go, hey! This has also given me a chance to work with the K-Mix, which is, as I've said, probably the most perfect audio interface on the planet, which also means that I am going to be doubly and triply critical of it if it does anything I don't like. And so there might be a bit of that, but it still doesn't mean that I don't love it as an audio interface, because I do, but I will be harsh with it because it can take it, you know. Anyway, so what am I going to do? Well, all I'm going to record 8 channels of audio directly into the Surface, add some effects. That's pretty easy, isn't it? So how am I doing that? Well, let me show you. Right, so down here I have a very dusty old Tascam DA38. Now in here, I have a tape, would you believe? An old high 8 tape, which is an 8-track tape. And on it, I've got recorded 8 tracks of that lovely acoustic number that I use as a test project. And I'm going to play that out of there through this assortment of cables out of the patch bay, along here, and into the back of the K-Mix. 8 channels of audio, 8 channels of analog audio, directly into Pro Tools. Here, I'm also going to be using the Surface without the keyboard, just using my fingers and the pen, just to kind of demonstrate that that is a very possible thing to do. Now, just to say, as I'm going to be using the pen and my fingers in Pro Tools, it may at times seem a bit awkward, because Pro Tools is not designed for touch in any way. And all I'm trying to do is just demonstrate that that's really not a problem, and that you can still touch Pro Tools, you can still move things about, and actually using the pen and your fingers is as easy as using the mouse and keyboard. Perhaps. Anyway, I mean, you know, I think it's a good thing to show. I've also got a camera up here as well, looking from above, and I'll try to mix a little bit of that in without trying to make this an enormous video of something. So, what do we do? Well, first of all, in Pro Tools, I have created 8 audio tracks. I've got them assigned to my 8 analog inputs coming in through the K-Mix. Now the K-Mix has a control panel for it and sort of an editor as such, which is completely rubbish on the Surface. Ta-da, here we go. So the K-Mix editor is this little window here. Now it's small, it's fiddly, all the text is all over the place. It's at different sizes and you can't see what it is. You're not entirely sure what any of these functions or controls are. You can scale up in Windows, you can scale down, it makes no difference. It's still a disaster, however you put it. Either it's too small that you can't read anything, or the text is just crazy bonkers all over the place. So that's rubbish. And in addition to that rubbishness, Keith McMillen, are you out there, is that it has no installer. So you download it as a zip file, open it up, and it's got an executable file in there which you can run. Yeah, I mean, that's okay. It's just kind of crappy baby stuff in Windows. You know, you need an installer. The manual says you're supposed to extract the folder and put it in your program files folder. What? And then do what? It doesn't tell you anymore. It says, and that's it. It says, well, that's rubbish, because it then doesn't come up on the start menu. It doesn't come up on the desktop. It doesn't come up when you search for it. Really? So that's crap. Just use an installer, Keith McMillen. Honestly, a Windows installer. It's simple. It's baby steps. And then you can put things where you want them to be. You could even have your shortcut appear in the control panel where it should be. Why make things unnecessarily difficult for yourself just because you're being lazy in your programming? Anyway, so I hope that sometime soon Keith McMillen understand the fact that there are high definition screens out there with high pixel densities, and this kind of crappy editor screen, GUI, is just not up to scratch. It's not up to scratch. It has a lot of facilities, a lot of power. I love the detail there is in the manual telling you about all these wonderful things that you can't quite find or see. So please sort that out. That would be great. Let's get past that then. So back to Pro Tools. I have everything going into the K-Mix, K-Mix routed into here. Let's enable the tracks for recording, like so, and let's turn on the tape. So I've hit play there. I'm going to hit record here. And hit play, and that should now start recording. Now, as you can see, that's recording beautifully. No trouble there at all. Bring up the editor window, the project window, and there it all is. 8 tracks of audio going in. Lovely, as you'd expect it to. The system usage over here is knocking around on 1 or 2%. It doesn't care, it's just recording audio. Now, I know that in the Pro Tools world, you're not allowed to record to the same drive as your system drive, and yet here I am. Isn't that magnificent? So we're just going to leave that running and wait till it gets to the end of the song, and then we'll come back and play that back, add a bunch of effects and see what occurs. One of the nice things about the K-Mix, just to mention at this point, is that you can monitor the inputs on VU meters on here. If I select trim and hit the VU, it will show you input monitoring. Can't really see it in this light, unfortunately, because it works really well in kind of a dull light as opposed to this bright light that I have here. But it's a really great feature. It has so many really great features. However, the other thing that I found in working with it is that the first 2 inputs, the mic inputs if you like, although they can also be line, so it says, are really, really hot. Looking into the manual, it seems that inputs 1 and 2 will only operate between 0 and 20 dB, 0 and 15 dB, something like that, whereas all the other channels go from -20 to 18 dB. So when you're routing a line level signal into the K-Mix, channels 3 to 8 operate completely within the normal sort of parameters. Inputs 1 and 2 are just really loud, and I find coming from the DA38 to here, I mean the DA38 is kicking it out at line level, to come into here it's actually distorting a tiny bit, and it's not even hitting 0 dB on the output of that. So I don't know quite what that's about, and in many ways it renders the K-Mix into a kind of a 6-channel line level thing, because you can't really use 1 and 2 seriously unless you're going to use them for mics or instruments, in which case they're brilliant. But what I don't understand is why there isn't a +4 -10 button or a pad button, something which just takes the edge off so that if something is coming in a little bit too loud, you can do something about it. But as it is, I can't do anything about it, which is a shame. Awesome, let's stop it there. 8 tracks, multi-track audio coming from, you could say it could come from a desk, you could be recording a band, you could be recording all sorts of things, 8 channels of it directly into the surface via the K-Mix, beautifully and perfectly into Pro Tools. That's pretty good. Of course, what I want to be doing is 32 channels, 64 channels, but you know, baby steps, baby steps. So let's have a look at the project then. and see whether we can add a bunch of effects to it. Just take those out of record. I'm going to go to loop playback. Back to here, let's select a bunch of this and set that playing. Okay, back to the mixer. Oh, don't want to be in trim, want to be in main. There we go. Now what you're going to need to look out for is clicks and pops in the audio, because that's our enemy. That's our enemy at this point. System usage up here is bugger all, so that's not the problem. But if any occur, although I'm going to have to keep this quite low so I can talk, I'll definitely point them out. So let's add a channel strip. Try to add things which you would actually add. So let's stick in a channel strip. This is here, I know that's a vocal, so let's stick it into a background vocal. This is acoustic guitar. Drum, right? This is the main vocal. So that's a bunch of channel strips added. There's no real effect on the system usage. That's all still fine. There's no clicks, no pops. That's all working. No bother. Right, let's add a reverb. Now one thing I'm missing when I'm using the pen is the use of keyboard shortcuts, because I have no keyboard here. Now I have a way of reintroducing those using something called the Toolbar Creator, so I can create a toolbar down the side which will give me those sort of shortcuts that I'm after. That's the sort of thing that I've been banging on about that Microsoft should include with Windows. It should be part of the OS, that when you're using the pen you can create a sort of a little bank of toolbar shortcut keys, macro keys, that kind of thing. That would be awesome, but I have to make my own, and I haven't had time to set that up just now, so I'm not using it, so I'm having to add every plugin in kind of the longhand way. But that's okay, it ain't no thing. So there we go, a bunch of deverbs added across every channel. That's now 16 plugins running completely fine. We've got 11% on the system usage. That's all right. It's completely stable. It's not doing anything. It's not going anywhere. Now this is more than I had going on the test project that I used before that was causing the crackles. So at the moment, it looks a lot to me as if some of the changes that have happened to the Surface have been very positive. Whereas previously, Pro Tools didn't seem to be able to do something as simple as this. It seemed to be coping with it completely normally. Which is awesome. Right, let's add something more difficult. Let's stick some Reactor Effects across it. Usually find it in Instrument, there we go. So Reactor 6, let's stick an analog filter box in there. Let's stick Banana Electric. Maybe not that one. There you go, nice tremolo. That'll do. Okay. So something dramatic. Okay, so I've added a whole bunch of reactors from Native Instruments, all with different effects, and it's up to about 30%. It's fine, it's having a lovely time. There's no clicks or pops, there's no glitches as far as I can tell. I mean, it sounds disastrous, but that's fine. Alright, let's get even harder then. Let's add something like, in fact, let's add a track. Let's add a master track. And let's stick in here a multi-channel plugin like Movement. Now, Movement is a big fat delay plugin from a company called Output. And it always interrupts playback when you load it because it's a monster. And now it says that it's ran out of CPU power trying to activate it. So that's a common thing when loading up a plugin. But it's probably actually working. Let's hit play again. Yeah, see, it can work fine. And if we look at the system usage again, it's at currently at 46%, 49, 50%, still well within bounds. This here is warm but not too hot. There's no unexpected behavior, which is excellent. Maybe we've cracked this then. I mean, I'm not going to be able to load up many of these before the whole thing falls apart, but I'm currently running, what am I running? 24 plugins, including 8 Reactor ones, which are pretty CPU intensive, and this one, which is massively CPU intensive. Oh! Okay, I'm just going to interrupt this video quickly for a quick news flash. Look what just turned up. It's a Microsoft Surface Book. Can you effing believe it? It's extraordinary. I finally got Microsoft to loan me one, which is amazing. I'm so grateful and so thankful to everyone at the Surface in USA, Mona in particular, and Surface in the UK, particularly to Chloe, who have sorted me out with this little baby. So that is obviously going to get some right royal testing right here soon. But before that, let's just finish off this little thing that we're doing here. So what was I saying? I don't know, I'm all afluster now. So yeah, let me stick in some kind of mastering type effect. Some dynamics, some big, fat, something or other. One of those. Is that interesting? No, not really. Let's try something like that. No, that's not interesting either. Spooky. So, well, there you go. All I really wanted to show was 8 channels of audio recording into Pro Tools on my Surface Pro 4, adding a bunch of effects and seeing whether it broke down. The answer to that question is no, it didn't break down. It lapped it up. It's completely fine. I've got, as I say, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 28 plugins, all decent size. I've got a whole bunch of reactors in there, reverbs, and it's rocking around at about 40% CPU, and it's as stable as anything. So that's awesome. So does this mean now that average Pro Tools is stable on the Surface Pro 4? Well, it means that it is to a degree of some sort. If you take this as an example, if you want to do a 64-track project of of audio mixed with a whole load of orchestral library and synths and stuff going on, then perhaps it will struggle. But something of a more modest size looks completely possible. What I will do is I'll do another video soon on using software synths and instruments within Pro Tools to record some stuff in externally and to mix that up with some synthy stuff inside as well, to see how that goes. Because all we can really do is try stuff out. I mean, because all tests are going to be flawed one way or the other, and not everyone is working in the same way. So what I hope I've managed to show, and what I want to show with these videos, is making music on the Surface Pro 4 with different bits of software. If we can do that, then we've cracked it. And if I can show that, then I think I've done my job. Whatever that job is, my job seems to be messing about. My job for the next little while is going to be looking at this fella. Ho-ho! Yeah. Interesting. And until next time, go make some tunes.